Heroes, it is 1:01 p.m. Central Time, and this is the first time I've said that in a long time. I miss you. I hope you're doing great. Happy New Year. Today, we have a special guest, Lanny Bassham. If you have followed along at all, you know that Lanny is one of my absolute all-time favorite teachers. Wrote a couple of great books that we profile, including look at that. When I searched Basham, by the way, Lanny, how cool is that? Troy's book, Attainment, came up at the top there. But I started by meeting Lanny with after I read With Winning in Mind, which is hands down one of the all-time best books on mental toughness, peak performance, etc. The mental management system is the subtitle. And then I actually learned about Lanny's son's book, Troy's book, Attainment, which is also phenomenal. And then we also featured Parenting Champions, which is one of my all-time favorite parenting books on how to, as per the book, parent champions, but what every parent should know about the mental game and the ultimate game of life. But before we jump in, I'll just say hi, Lanny, if you can just say hi, and then I'm going to say hi to everybody. But good to see you, sir.
Yeah, good to see you. So, what have you been doing?
I've been working hard, Lanny. I launched a book. I've been working hard and just excited to connect. But let me say hi real quick. I like to kind of go through and just see some wonderful faces. Coach Lanny, haven't seen you in a while. I love seeing you online. Tim, Mitch, Roca, I'm still buzzing from our time together. That was fun. Great work, sir. 7th Brigade, man. So proud of that and you and us. Beth, great to see you. Michael, Chris, M. Aurelius, nice to see you, sir. Anthony, great to see you always. Eladio, Zach, David, Carol, Joe, Stephanie, Norbert, Chris. I'm getting like flashback. I have missed you all so much. Deborah, Sue, nice to see you. Maria, Ryan, and Jean and Vicky on screen one. Everybody else, bless you. Timmy D, nice to see you. Sarah, of course, can't resist saying hi some more. So Lanny, I have so much respect and admiration for you. Your ideas around mental performance in general, but specifically like your needs work frame is one of my all-time favorite, methodologies of, all right, you missed the target. What needs work? How can I change that? That's like me forging a strong self-image has been transformative for me in my work. And I want to talk about those ideas, but first, I just want to learn more about you and your hero's journey, as a young Olympian in the first Olympics and then the second. But if you can tell us about your story, and if you could go all the way back to when you were a kid and the experiences you share with your dad when you might not have been excelling in different sports, then you kind of found something that lit you up. But just really excited to have a fun conversation and learn more about you.
Well, I started out as the worst athlete in school, and I can prove it. I played alternate right field in Little League Baseball. I mean, that is the bottom. I mean, and I was slow, short, and uncoordinated, and it was a well-deserved, unathletic start for me. I'm in 6th grade, and we're studying the Olympics in school, and the teacher makes this statement in class. It's possible somebody in this class could be Olympic champion someday. I wonder who'd have the best chance. And this little boy sitting next to me, he jumps right up and says, "Teacher, I don't know who'd have the best chance, but I know for sure who'd have the worst chance, Lanny." And that kind of started me off because I went home and kind of upset that I didn't fit in anywhere. I talked to my dad about it, and he says, keep trying, keep looking. And my mother hauled me off the library and made me check out books on Olympic athletes. I think she just wanted me to read, but I did, and I got inspired. And the whole idea of the Olympics, I mean, for somebody who's really bad at everything athletic, to read about people that are best in the world, it just hit a nerve. And so that's what started. And my big problem was finding a sport I could do. And it wasn't long after that.
Where's the detail, Manny? In the story of becoming an athlete, which sport are you going to go dominate? There's so much more we can talk about there, but continue.
Well, what happened was a friend of mine invited me to a rifle club meeting, and I said, well, I don't know anything about shooting or anything like that. And so I said, please, well, tell me about rifle shooting. He said, it's an Olympic sport. And I said, are you sure? Because none of the books I found in the library were about Olympic rifle shooters. And so he says, oh, no, it's an Olympic sport. It's been in the modern Olympiad. And I said, how tall do you have to be a rifle shooter? And he said, it doesn't matter how tall you are. I said, okay, how strong do you have to be? How fast do you have to be? Well, you don't have to do any of that stuff because in rifle shooting is the only sport in the Olympics where you're trying to make the body stop. I thought, well, okay. I found something because sure can't make it go. So that's how I got started in shooting.
Oh
And
my.
so I go to the rifle club meeting, and uh, that's they let me shoot, and that's all I wanted to do after that. And so my father takes me back to the rifle club meeting, and they cancel a meeting. And so one of the things I had in common with the books that I was reading about these heroes was that they all had obstacles, and mine showed up early. The sport looked like to me it was closed, the closed door, but my father didn't see it that way. And he said, give me a few days, let me see what I can do. And he got the keys to an indoor range that nobody was using, and made it available to me. And the problem was, and my dad began to teach me how to shoot, but the problem was he was a military officer and he knew about shooting in combat. He had been in World War II, kind of a war hero. And but he found out a place that there was a marksmanship unit at the base that he was stationed at. And so he'd go over there and get information, come back and teach me. And so that's how I got started. And so my father was such a good coach that I accelerated pretty fast. And 15 months later, I was national junior champion with a rifle.
Oh, geez, Lanny, there's so much there that just brings tears to my eyes. Everything about that is just truly the definition of heroic. The young hero failing at all the things he wants to succeed in. And then that schoolroom, sixth grader, I know who's not going to be an Olympic champion. Oh no, poor Lanny. And then you go home, and I'm just trying to feel into the energy in your home, and your dad's attitude, your mom's attitude, and there's so much beauty there of the hero having that wise guide and guides that are supporting them. And then the story with your friend in the rifle shooting. Tell me more about your mom and your dad. I would just love to hear more about them because they clearly
Well,
were such wonderful people who saw your potential and supported you in that regard.
now my father was, he grew up in a small town in West Texas. A lot of brothers and sisters, and it was at a time in history when young men, when you learn to read and write, that school stopped. So I think he had a seventh grade education, and then the rest of his time he was, hired hand on his dad's farm.
Mm.
And he was a very educated man, but self-educated, starting out like that. And then World War II hits, and of course he's signs up and goes to war. And he is in the Anzio Beach invasion, which is the second largest invasion in World War II. D-Day, of course, was the largest, but Anzio Beach was significant. And he gets a battlefield commission. And so you don't have to have a college education to get a battlefield commission. You just have to be in the right place at the right time and survive. And he showed some leadership ability, and he did. And so that's why he ended up in the military. Um, and coaching me, he was what was my dad was good at. A lot of the things that you tend to focus on in your work are characteristics of successful people. One of the characteristics my father had that I think was stellar is that he was good at building people. He could take a person and give them belief in themselves, motivate them, and treated everybody uh, like they could be instead of like who they thought they were.
Hmm.
And that was, as a solution-based coach, that was where I learned how to think about the solution instead of the problem. And it
Hmm.
was a lot later that I understood that that's how self-image is built, is when you think about a problem, your self-image shrinks, but you think about the solution, self-image grows.
Hmm.
And I learned that from my father. We just didn't know what to call it. We didn't know to call it self-image.
Hmm.
But he was so successful at that he was assigned to the Army Marksmanship Unit and the reason that was important to me in my shooting career was I was in I guess middle school at the time, but it was on a shooting team, and the reason that was important is the United States of America dominated international rifle shooting at this time in history, and all of our medalists were stationed at the United States Army Marksmanship Unit where my dad worked. So I had access to the best in the world.
Hmm.
Uh, and I took advantage of it.
Hmm.
I think that's another principle is that find people that are really good and find a way to get to them. And so I just did what they all did. I went to college at a shooting sports program. I was a collegiate All-American. I took ROTC, went in the Army, was stationed at the Army Marksmanship Unit where the best people in the world were. And I trained with them. And I managed to get in the top four, but I didn't win anything my first 3 years.
Hmm.
I knew something was missing, but I didn't know what it was. And we never once had a conversation about the mental game back in those days. We thought that mental toughness was something you had. It wasn't something you could learn. And so we weren't trying to learn it. And it wasn't until I actually made an Olympic team in 1972, but I had a terrible time at that Olympics, at least at the start. I was just shaken, and I knew what was missing was I wasn't mentally tough, and I didn't have a mental process that worked in the Olympics. And I had the skills, but I didn't have the ability, the mental ability. And so that's what really started me trying to find the answers to a problem that I'm not the only person that has had problems with pressure in tournaments. But I wanted to find out. I refused to accept the fact that you couldn't learn this, but who are you going to learn it from? And so I decided what I really want to do was I wanted to win. Well, let's start with winners.
Hmm.
And back in those days, we didn't have cell phones. We had answering machines. And so I would leave answering on world champions. And I knew a couple of Olympic gold medalists in other sports. And so I had their phone numbers. You can get that when you're a silver medalist in the Olympics. You can get gold medalist phone numbers. And I would leave a message. I'm Lanny Bassham. I'm a silver medalist in the Olympics, and you're a gold medalist. I need your help. Call me back. And they just did. And I got good at asking questions, and they were wonderful to me. They all were very forthcoming and telling me what they knew about the mental game. Nobody had the whole story, but everybody had a piece of it. And I just, like a puzzle, I just put them all together and created a system and upgraded to it, won the world championships, next Olympics, won the Olympics, and I've been teaching that system for 45 years. Well, actually, next year will be 50 years.
Wow, time flies when you're having fun. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Every single thing about that again is so wonderful. I was thinking of Malcolm Gladwell and his book Outliers, where
Hmm.
that whole mix of passion, ability, opportunity that presents itself, that again, the hero seizes, whether it's Bill Gates, happened to live right next to one of the early kind of supercomputer things, would get up at night and do his thing. Or having been blessed with the opportunity with your dad, and then these marksmanship experts, but then seizing that opportunity. Such a cool expression of that. So 1972 is the first Olympics. I love how you say you didn't have it. You got a silver. Well done. Congratulations. Not bad for not having what you needed. Then what changed? So you made all these calls. What was the first set of distinctions you made? And then I want to arrive at the three
I,
aspects of your current model.
I made, I started seeing things that I never seen before when I was talking to these guys. You see, I thought that performance was totally a function of what you thought about and your skill. I recognized the fact that there were helpful and harmful thoughts, and when you thought about harmful ones, it made a difference in your success. And so I kind of knew that. I really didn't exactly know what the most helpful ones were or how to systemize that or put them into a process. But obviously I had the skills, and skills come from getting good information and lots of sweat equity, a lot of practice. And so I could shoot the scores in training. It was when I got into tournaments, something was wrong. I wasn't consistent. And so I thought that if that performance was a function of these two mental processes, conscious and subconscious. And I knew that you needed to perform subconsciously, but you had to have some conscious thoughts to keep you from thinking, helpful ones to keep you from thinking about harmful ones. But I knew that something was different, was missing, but I didn't know what it was until I started talking to these guys, and I realized that they were doing some things that are totally different from what I was doing. To start with, they weren't trying to win, and I thought that's what you were supposed to do. You're supposed to try to win. Oh no, no. They told me that when you're competing, you're not trying to win. You're trying to execute.
Hmm.
And well, I was trying to win. And so I was thinking about the wrong thing, and they weren't trying to win; they were trusting that they would. And there's a big difference between trying and trusting. And I had to learn to trust instead of try. And I was over trying big time, and that's actually pandemic in sport when people they want to win, so they'd over try, and that's a bad thing to do. But I didn't know I was doing that. And there was a lot of things that I saw. Uh, and I didn't know what to call this thing that was missing until I read Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. And that book gave it a name, self-image. And so I realized, aha, like the old Henry Ford saying, if you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Well, that's self-image. That's your attitude about whether or not you can do something or not. And that's what was missing, was this self-image. And so now I had a three process model, and things started to come into to focus. And I just built a system around it. And then that gave me mental consistency and a lot of confidence. And that was a big turnaround. And I think this is one of the reasons why people don't reach the top of their potential, because they don't properly use those three processes. Most people think that all they have to do is train, 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 train. And that's not true. And you ask any elite performer in any sport today, any PGA Tour player, we work with a lot of tour players or and things like that, Olympic athletes, and You ask them, what percentage of your sport's mental? They all say, my sport's a 95% mental. And well, that's not skill. Skill is physical. Skill is form. And so the top people are recognizing that the mental game is important. And what I'm seeing is as we grow in the knowledge of this, is that I think that although I think my my entry into being a mental coach was probably at the kind of ground level of this um, of the attention that the mental performance has given. And early on, nobody was really talking about it much back in the 70s, but every year it's grown until now. Um, it's it's hard to read an article in a sport magazine that doesn't mention something having to do with how you think.
Yep.
And I hope that someday um, having a course on how to think will show up in school. We've actually written a curriculum for high school for elective called What the Winners Know.
Hmm.
I would have liked to have had that
I would
course.
have liked to have that one, Lanny. Oh
Uh,
my goodness. Yeah,
yeah, so we've had a couple of schools pick it up, but I think we'll see. We'll see what
yeah,
happens.
that's inspiring. So the three aspects of your mental management system, which are represented in the logo, is that right?
That's
On the
right.
are the conscious mind directing our thoughts, the subconscious mind, and the self-image. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Can you give us some high level tips? And again, guys, Nat, if you can put in the chat here where people can go. Where's the best place for people to learn more about you, Lanny, just so they can go there in real time?
Well, we're in the process of creating a new focus of our website. But you can always find me if you just Google me or mental management. You can go to mentalmanagement.com, which is our current website. But if you want to see what I'm trying to do in the future, go to withwinninginmind.kajabi.com. I haven't switched it over to live, but if you wanted to see that, you could begin to see. And there's a special report on that page, or I'll give you the link of how to get that special report. It's free about how I used mental management to win the Olympics, and that we'd just love to send that out if
That's
some.
fantastic. So we'll share that in the chat now. And if you're going to give us kind of the Lanny gold medal winner notes on that right now, how would you encourage us to think about it to move from theory, setting that up, and then the practice toward mastery?
Well, the first thing there are two major concepts that I discovered that made a difference in my life, and a lot of makes a difference in everybody, and that's the performance is a function of the three mental processes that we've talked about, but also that everything we do in life has three phases to it. It has an anticipation phase where you're preparing to do something, and it's the action phase where you actually do it. And then there's a reinforcement phase, what you think about immediately after you do it. And what's interesting about this is that most people don't pay much attention to the reinforcement phase. And that's unfortunate because the self-image I'm convinced that self-image is the difference between good and great. It's the difference between you being okay and you being stellar, you being heroic. Okay. So if that's the case, there's a relationship, a direct relationship between the anticipation phase, action phase, reinforcement phase, and the conscious, subconscious, and self-image. The anticipation phase is a conscious circle issue. The action phase is a subconscious circle issue, And the reinforcement phase is a self-image issue. So what you think about immediately after you do a task either builds or breaks your self-image, either causes you to grow or causes you to decline based on how you respond to what happened. And that's the big difference between the top 5%ers, the guys that do win 95% of the time. I think that 95% of the winning is accomplished by 5% of the participants. And the reason that they do is because they respond appropriately. So if I could just throw one, if there's one thing I wish everybody would change that I've learned, is learn how to respond appropriately to what happens. Because most people react. Now, it takes no mental maturity to learn how to react. You knew how to react when you were born. You come into this world totally capable of reacting. When things are good, you're happy. When things aren't good, you're upset. And well, you don't need to do that. You should look at everything that happens to you. If it's good, you need to reinforce it. You should think about, what did I do right? How did that work? I mean, why did that work? And I think about, I'll reinforce what you do right. That's first. And sometimes it doesn't go right. Well, then what you need to do is learn from that. So that's the only two things you can do. You either reinforce what you did right, or you reinforce what you learned because it didn't go right. So it's not winning and losing, it's winning and learning. And once you respond appropriately, your self-image is always growing. But if you allow yourself to complain, or allow yourself to reinforce, to beat yourself up about something, or to think about anything other than okay, that didn't work. What's this teaching me? What work does it need? And as long as you're constantly trying to improve, your self-image is going to grow, and you take advantage of that. And I think top people, performing people are good at that. They tend to learn, and they tend to reinforce when they do things right, and they tend to learn when they don't.
So good. And just to add some personal context to it, Emerson, my son, got into chess over the last year. So it's given me an opportunity to practice this with him. We've been teaching our coaches, the 1, 2, 3 post-performance that you encourage parents to do with their kids and any performer to do with themselves. But first, celebrate what went well and what was awesome in that performance, whereas most of us want to go immediately to the thing they want to fix. Celebrate was great, and then what specifically do you think you could have worked on? Then what specifically will you do next time to win or learn? And learning is winning. But I have done this. I don't know how many games Emerson has played in tournaments now, but it's in the hundreds now, every single time. And so, after losing, and crying, it's all right. Well, we were here. We're celebrating the fact that we're in a tournament. We're having fun. We're doing this. What specifically happened? At that pivotal point in the game, and we now get excited about it. Oh, well, this happened and then that happened. All right, well, what specifically can we do differently next time? And there's been enough cycles through where he now sees that when he lost, he learned something, which then very shortly translated into a win. So to be able to connect that learning to the winning has been unbelievably powerful to see with him in like real time, So I'm thinking of you every single time I go through that loop with him, and it's such a sacred, powerful thing. So much more we can talk about there. Why is self-image so important? When you said that you believe the difference between pretty good and truly great and heroic is self-image, tell us what you're thinking about when you say that.
Well, I believe that that if you take a look at the top 5%ers that do 95% of the winning, and then you take a look at the second 5%, the 5% that just underneath them, they look just alike. They use the same equipment, they have the same passion for the sport. They work just as hard. They have the same knowledge. They do everything the same as the top 5%, except one. They don't win. Why? Why? It's because of the kind of things that happen and when we talk about self-image. Self-image is like maybe the best way for me to put it, Brian, is let's say that you and I are in a sport together and we get down to where we're the two left, we're competing against each other for the championship. And we have equal ability, equal skill, equal passion, equal everything. The only difference is you think you can beat me and I think you can beat me. It's over for me. That's self-image. Self-image is how you see yourself in the world, in the game. And if you don't believe, if your attitude about is subordinate to your competition, you're giving them a big edge. And you don't want to be arrogant. You want to be confident, and you want to have justification for what how you feel about yourself. But I do feel like that building self-image should be a priority for every competitor. And I go into a lot of detail on my books about imprinting, about how to change imprint, how to change self-image by imprinting. So every time you think about something, it creates an imprint. So if you're worrying that you're not going to do well, that's an imprint. Your self-image shrinks. And if you're optimistic about what you're going to do, if you're looking to succeed, the self-image tends to grow. So what you think about, when you control what you think about, control what you talk about. Most people talk about their problems, talk about their mistakes, talk about the things they don't like about what they do. And the top 5%ers don't really do that too much. They tend to talk about what they liked, about what they did, and that's the reason why their self-image grows. So what you think about, what you talk about, and if you ever took tried to keep a performance journal where you actually wrote down what you did right, and you'll never not do it because it improves. Writing is the strongest form of imprinting in the self-image, is to write down what you did right, and write down what you learned, and write down what you want to do, write down what you're going to do. And I think that to do it in your own handwriting is more effective than typing it out. I'm not saying that typing it out is not effective. I just don't think it's as effective, because when you see your own handwriting, it's yours. And there's some accountability there that I don't think shows up when you type it out. It might be easier to search for that information, but it's I think keeping a journal is a real important part. So there's other things that cause your self-image to shrink, like being who you're around. Your environment does impact significantly on the direction that your self-image grows. I personally believe that there's really only that when you're around people that are better than you are at something, you tend to move to their direction. And if you're around people that are complaining a lot, pretty soon you're complaining a lot.
The average of the 5 people with whom you spend the most time, right? Again, there's so much there. So one of the phrases in more than one of your books, but you'll never outperform a poor self-image, has been tattooed in my consciousness as well. That how important this is, how we cultivate that self-image in many of the ways that you just described. But go on. I think you were going to say you were going to continue your thinking.
No, I'm just saying that those three concepts are directly related to the three things that you do. I don't care what it is that you're competing in, whether it's competing for grades, competing for a chair in the school band, or for and to interview for a job or whatever it is. There's Don't forget the reinforcement phase, that when you finish that task, that attempt, whatever that it was, that to respond appropriately. I think that responding is really a three-step process. I ask, you kind of hit on it a little bit. I ask all of my athletes when I do counseling after uh, performances or games or whatever it is that they do. I ask them three questions. I encourage parents to ask their kids 30 questions when they pick them up from a game. First one is, what'd you do right? The second one is, what'd you learn? And the third one, what are you going to do about it? Well, reinforcement phase is kind of the same thing. Is you evaluate what you did right, and you figure out, what do I need to do to correct the things that I didn't do right? In other words, focus on the solution, not the problem. When you think about the solution, self-image grows. When you think about the problem, self-image shrinks. Oftentimes people are thinking, talking, writing about the problem and never getting to the solution, or hoping that the solutions, this problem is not mine to solve. It's not my fault. It's somebody else's fault, or it's the association's fault, or it's the competition's fault, or all that. No, it's more your responsibility to find out what you can do to make it better. Because you can't control other people. You can't control the association. You can't control the politics of the country. I mean, other than the vote, but you can control, or you should be in control of what you're thinking and what you reinforce.
So then let's go to that reinforcement phase. So we anticipate, we act, and then we reinforce. We either performed at a level that we're proud of, in which case we reinforce or feast on that. That's like me is another phrase that you introduced to my mind and to our teaching. I don't know how many times I've said that's like me. Every single time I do a set of burpees, that's like me. Boom, literally a little fist pump. That's like me. That's like me. That's like me. That's like me. And then when we miss the mark, quickly going back to the moment when we performed suboptimally, replay what we could have done in that moment and understand what we could have done, and then let it go was another big insight that you frame up in different contexts.
I think you need to correct your faults. Think about it this way, that making a mistake is not a mental error. Making a mistake and learning from it is a requirement to get better. So be happy about your mistakes. I'm not saying that you should go out and make them so that you're going to be happy. Make them plenty of mistakes without trying to make them. But learning from your mistakes is the difference between having a person who learns from their mistakes and gets into the habit of doing that has a shorter time frame to get good at anything. And somebody that doesn't learn from their mistakes, it's going to take a long time, if ever.
This is Ray Dalio's mistake learner's high. His model is your model of, yeah, I got ambitious goals. I fall short. What did I learn? Boom. And literally getting excited about them. And even, again, just to use Emerson as an example, last weekend tournament, he won 2, he learned 2. But the 2 that he won, like, all right, perfect. What do we do? What do we, pre-match, during, after? And then afterwards, we're literally getting excited. for the learns, it's like, oh, all right, cool. What are you proud of in that game, and what are we going to learn? And there's that rubbing your hands together. Um, Difficult to describe, enthusiasm for the process of knowing that mistakes are not only something that you tolerate, but something that is inherently part of the process, then the very thing that fuels your growth. So let's get excited about it. Love to hear more thoughts on that.
Yeah, everything that you we were talking a little bit about responding and talking about that you evaluate what you've done, and I think there's really three categories in evaluation. Great, it's about I've got nothing to say to improve that. I'll take that every time. Uh, okay. Well, there's only it's okay. There's a couple of things that I could have done better, but um, you know, everything else needs work. You know, what work does it need? So now we're talking about the subject of the thought pattern is what work does it need? What do we need to do? That's what people who learn from the mistakes do. That's how they do it. They focus on what they need to do. And then once they've determined a thing to do, they act on it, but they let the mistake go. In other words, I'm not going to repeat that to somebody else. I'm not going to be quick to tell somebody about what I did wrong or think about it again. I'm shut the door on that problem. You work on the solution and let it go and let that process go. And so once you develop that, we call it reload. To this is what we have a preload and a reload in our mental system, but the it's taking some time after everything that you do to reinforce what you did right. I'm surprised at how many champions that I've taught that don't really reinforce what they do right, and they would do it right more often if they did. And
How do we
so,
do that? Let me just go right there. So, what's the main recommended practice or set of practices to reinforce um, correct behavior that we want to do more of?
well, I think that you should, after you finish a task or an attempt, or whatever it is, whether it's shooting a free throw in basketball or throwing a pitch in baseball or whatever it is, uh, or taking a class in school or taking an exam in school or playing a game or whatever it is, that you should take some time to evaluate. First step, there's three-step process. First step is to evaluate what you've done and put what you've done into a category. Um, Great, okay, needs work. And based on what category they were in, now you know what to do in the next step. Is that if it's great, you want to make sure that you think about that and reinforce that. And I mean that's where that's like me comes in, and this is who I do it. This is what I do. This is who I am. This is what I do. And if there's a slight correction, well, what would I have liked to have done better? Okay, there's that. And sometimes needs work. It is everything else. That attempt needs work. Well, what work does it need? And don't stop with the fact that it recognizes that it needs work. What work does it need? Come up with a solution-based thought and plan, and then implement that in your training program and implement that in your goals. And then let that attempt go, because there's a real good chance that you've got another attempt to do today. That's probably not the only time you're going to throw a pitch or shoot a free throw or take an exam in school. Uh, Next time, you're not going to go back and beat yourself up over a past failure. one thing that I can say of the top 5%ers that I know, especially all of the dominant top 5%ers, I mean, people that are on the short list of the greatest of all time, uh, they never talk about their faults. They don't bring the old stories up of their failures. Uh, they might have, if they've got a story, it's when they overcame something or when they succeeded at something. And that's what they're reinforcing because they don't want problems to follow them around. They've let those problems go. That's that's really good advice in any kind of relationship you have with an with a with another person is you know, it's probably a good idea for you to let some things go.
Run it through the needs work analysis, get clear, recommit on the specific thing that is going to get the work, and let it go. Is there anything else you want to share? I want to see if anyone has a question, raise your hand. We've got about another 11 minutes with Lanny. If you've got a question, raise your hand. Anything that we haven't discussed that you want to make sure that we highlight?
Well, one of the things that has been has driven my mind and my heart for the last probably last 5 years is the fact that parents are the most important mental coach that a child will ever have. And I don't think most parents view themselves as being a mental coach, but they are. And and they're super important. I think that 75% of a person's self-image and their habits and attitudes are crafted while they're at home. And when you get away from home, there are opportunities for you to grow as well, for sure. But I think that most of the things that you learn at home, and parents are uh, nobody goes to parent school. I mean, you know, the two people that are least qualified to be a parent are his mom and dad, especially with the first child. I mean, you learn a little bit after the second child. The second child's a little bit more in trouble than the first one is. I'm an only child, so my parents always knew who did it. So, but we started out with twins, so I never knew who did it. I still don't know who did it. They both are going this way. And
What's your
but
number one tip for parents? You talked about what to do after the game, but beyond that, and I am thinking of parenting champions and some of the things you teach in there. But what would you encourage our parents who are here to think about as they think about themselves as their child's primary mental toughness performance coach?
well, I think that the first conversation that they have with them after they do anything, good or bad, the first conversation that they have, think about that before, think about how it affects a person's self-image by by uh, by what you say. Uh, Parents, like when you pick up your son from a soccer game or daughter from a soccer game, and you say, "How'd you do?" That's one of the worst things that you can say because "How'd you do" is an open-ended question. And we live in a negatively charged world. Most of their friends are talking about their mistakes. They're being conditioned by a negatively charged world to talk about what's wrong. And you just asked an open-ended question, and it would have been much better for you to have asked them, what did you enjoy? What went well? What direct the question so that they answer, the first answer that they give is talking about what they did right, and instead of what they did wrong. I think that parents, they're not trying to help to hurt their kids, but they're hurting their kids. I'll give you another example. Okay, your report card comes in, and a parent's talking to their child about a report card, And they say, oh, well, I noticed that you made a B in this semester and you made an A last semester. What's wrong? So now we're immediately talking about the problem. Or it can even get worse. What are you spending too much time in football that you didn't pay attention to class, and or are you dating too much, or you working too much, or you're not sleeping enough, and that they bring up a bunch of reasons why it won't work, and they're just trying to help their kids, and they're really destroying and dinging their self-image when they do that. Parents just don't know the rules. And when people come to training with us, everybody says the same thing when they finish the training we do, is I wish I'd known this sooner. Well, when is sooner? Sooner's as soon as you start learning skill, you should learn some mental training skills. And and that's the reason why I think that the parents who love their children need to learn how to build self-image in their kids, and because they are doing it anyway, they just may not be doing it as effectively as they could, and
Right.
that bothers me, and where it keeps me up at night is that I can't do everything, but I can do some things, and that's why Parenting Champions was written, and why that's a major focus of my life, is worrying about your kids.
Yep, it's beautiful. And check out Parenting Champions, the note in the book. And then one of the things we encourage our parents who want to parent champions is practice this. Every single example you used in a competitive environment is appropriate in every single moment of our lives. So if I have and the example I use in the book, my book, to get to the needs work, is my kids going nuts in the car on the long drive, and I finally lost it. I got impatient and it kind of polluted the rest of the night. Well, I needs work that. I go right back to that. Oh, okay. Well, what went well? What went well was we had a great family day. It was a wonderful day, and it was a long drive back, but it was a great day. And then, what did I learn? All right, well, I learned that after this much time in this, my patience gets there. All right, what am I specifically going to do differently? I'm going to take a breath, and I'm going to choose to do X, Y, and Z just slightly differently. But I have found it so impactful in every area of my life, and I've strived to embody it such that I know what I'm talking about when I train Emerson in these mental toughness things. So parents, as always, as we discuss, your client number 0, let's get to work. I want to make sure we at least get one question in here. Emma Aurelius, I saw your hand go up first. How are you, sir? Good to see you.
I'm doing well, sir. Good to meet you.
Likewise.
And nice to meet you, Mr. Lanny. Thank you for offering for showing up here. In your book, Parenting Champions, you make a distinction between achievement and becoming.
Yep.
And in coaching young learners and teenagers, those who aren't going for a long-term athletic career or so, let's say they're falling short of achievement. Right now, I see them as winners. They're making that effort towards winners. How would you coach their mindset afterwards? I know going through 1, 2, 3, what went well, what needs work, and what are we going to do for next time. I have an idea in my mind, but I wanted to see your answer for those who are falling short of that achievement, yet I want to cultivate that becoming.
Well, okay, so let's my point. My favorite word in that we've come up with over the years is attainment, and I think there's a difference between attainment and accomplishment. Accomplishment is always has a number associated with it, and yet. And so accomplishment's really important, because that's where all the medals are taken. Accomplishments A, B, C, D, F in school, first, second, third on the leaderboard, gold, silver, bronze in the Olympics, how much money you make, all that stuff. And you can separate people by easily by accomplishment, because there's always this number. And when your number is bigger than my number, well, then it's easy for you to get a higher grade or a higher award or higher reward. Well, but it's interesting. If accomplishment is so important, why, whenever I ask a parent, what's more important to you, what your kids accomplish or who they become? They always say who they become. Well, wait a minute. The world, it doesn't care so much who they become. But the reason why becoming is not rewarded is because it's hard to measure becoming. I mean, how do you measure trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent? How do you I was a Boy Scout. I still remember those things. But what I'm trying to get coaches and parents to see, by the way, Parenting Champions could just as easily, I probably will write another book called Coaching Champions, and I'm going to use the same outline because it's the same story for a coach. But are you building the person based on who they become in the process? Are you focusing on character? Are they focusing on character? They see the value of character. You see this all the time in famous coaches, like John Wooden is my best example of this, where he says, I'm not care. I don't care if they can play basketball so much as if I can build the player, I can always teach them how to play basketball. And so his book is phenomenal, a little bitty book, and it's great. But it is one that if you're having trouble with motivation, make sure that the motivation is not your motivation and not building their motivation. Because there's a lot of people that are in sports that are there not because they necessarily want to be, or maybe another way to say that is that there are a lot of people who are just perfectly happy to participate, not to excel. And what that is showing you is their level of passion is not high enough. And I don't think you can teach passion. I think people have it or they don't have it. And sometimes it goes away and sometimes it resurfaces. And a coach has got to be really careful about demanding passion, or a parent demanding passion. They are passionate about it, but the athlete's not passionate about it. I think it goes back to honestly evaluating what their goals are. And once now you can definitely sweeten the pot in the sense that you can say, you know, if you want this, and you're going to have to do more if you want to go to this level. One of the most phenomenal organizations that does this all the time is karate, where they've got the belt system. So it's just like, you know, when somebody has a color that's higher than your color, well, more is demanded of a person when they move up. And so it's like junior varsity and varsity. You don't demand the same things of a junior varsity player than you do a varsity player. But it's the choice of a person to want to go, to want to be at that level. And once they make that choice, now you can hold them accountable. And so you have leverage as a coach. I don't know, I probably confused you now.
No, no. What I heard was find their intrinsic motivation and then give them evidence and examples of that effort, even if they don't achieve it, on that becoming of their growth. So we're looking there at their growth.
I think another thing that I would love to see parents and coaches do more of is reward becoming.
Yes, yes.
By saying, you know what I appreciate about you, you're always here on time. You know what I love about you, you're always helpful. when I tell you to do something, you do it right away. I mean, this is you're making it so easy for me to coach you. You are a fantastic person. You know,
If to add to that, it's bringing their awareness to what they're doing well, and that's actually what we do individually in Heroic. Like that's like us. The parent is saying that's like you, and you're bringing their awareness.
that's right. And it
Sorry to cut you.
the difference between accomplishment and attainment is that I'm not against winning and I'm not against accomplishment. Attainment is becoming plus accomplishment, or accomplishment plus becoming. In other words, always thinking about who is this causing me to become, as well as what I'm accomplishing. But I think far too many people are totally, well, you got to make A's, you got to make A's, you got to make A's. Oh, come on, that's not nearly as important as who a person becomes in the process.
Beautiful. And the way we frame it up, objective number one, know the ultimate game. And then the game of rifle shooting, the game of chess, the game of fill in the blank becomes just the context through which we can attain and become our best selves. And then again, to Lanny's point, it's not that accomplishment doesn't matter. The eudaimon in the ancient Greek and Stoic ideal does achieve the things they set out to achieve. That's important. But the ultimate game is one of building character, and the byproduct is the wins. It goes back to the your Olympic champions when you interviewed them. I'm not trying to win, I'm trying to execute, and then the byproduct becomes the greatness that we all so desperately seek at times, and trip ourselves up in the process. Wouldn't, of course, give me full effort and a positive attitude. Let's let the score take care of itself. Full effort is full victory. That's how Gandhi put it. Yeah, I mean, we could talk for a weekend, and we're not too far apart now that I'm in Texas, so we're ready to find an opportunity to do that. But Lanny, I so appreciate you taking the time and spending 50 years, more than 50 years now of your life dedicated to this practice and sharing so much of your wisdom, and how your family shows up. I think of you often, with your sons creating together now as my kids get older. So just deeply, really appreciate you, and appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. And I appreciate all of you for being here. And it was great to see everybody. And Nat, I'm going to let you facilitate. Or Nat, are you still here?
I'm here.
Wonderful. I am going to let you, if people who want to connect with one another, you may connect with one another. Lanny, bless you again. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing everybody else soon. Until then, good to see you too, Nat. Wish you a wonderful day.
Well, thank you very much, Brian, and goodbye. Take care.
Lanny, thank you. All right, have a great day. Nat, I got you.
Yeah, I'm here.
There you are. All right, do your thing, please.
Yes, you got it. Thank you. Great to see you. Missed you.
All right, likewise. I know. How's it 2024? How are we almost halfway through January already? What? All right, love you all. See you soon.